at SAP Ariba. Wanted to walk through, as part of this Invoice Against Contract series, what the supplier side looks like for both the BPOs and direct invoice against contracts. We kind of talked about that in one of the previous videos about the difference between a BPO release orders and a standard invoice against contract. And I'll show you what it looks like from the supplier side. So we'll jump over. So this is actually my contracts. I'm going to jump over to the supplier network. So I've logged in as a supplier here. I'm going to search. I'm going to create just a contract invoice. I'm not actually going to search for orders here. So I'm going to go create a contract-based invoice. First off, if they have multiple customers, such as yourselves, right, they'll select the customer. If they have multiple, sites or ERP systems, they'll need to select that. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and select a contract. In this case, I've used this contract a couple of times. It's very similar to the ones we've used in other examples. And so we'll set that up. We'll create the invoice date for today, all the basic things that you would need when creating an invoice here. Enter that information in, and it actually punches you into the customer site, right? So once this generates, you've got all the header level tags and additional fields. You'll go to add additional items down here, and that's going to populate the items that are actually on this contract, right? And it's obviously a little bit different than the demo, but it's very similar that I've got some project leads as well as an annual maintenance fee. So they simply add this to the invoice and then submit the invoice. You'll notice that again, they may have different items. So it may be, an annual software maintenance, some IT resources that they'll bill separately, and then like travel and expense. They'll have access to all of those items that they can add. You'll notice it added down here. Obviously, it would update tax if tax was calculated, etc. So that is how invoice against contract works. There's no purchase order, right? These are the contract terms. I'll actually pull it up real quick in the UI directly so that you guys can see what that looks like. But there is no real purchase order per se. So now we'll look at this BPO option, and I'm going to pull up BPO, a previous BPO that I'd used in life. And so in this particular case, I'll pull it up. Again, looks the same. I've got some materials and services and fixed fees, monthly fees, right? Pretty similar in general. When I do it from the supplier side, right? So I'm going to exit out of this previous invoice I created. I'm going to actually show you both ways, right? So when you don't do it as a BPO, they have to punch into your site and actually pull this up. But if you do it as a BPO, they have the option of punching into your site, looking for this BPO, selecting it, creating the invoice number, all the things that you would expect them to do here. And so when they go to add items, very similar to the last demo, right? They're going to find obviously the monthly service fees as well as the cubic foot, right? And so, for instance, I could say that I had 100 cubic feet. Let's say I had 360 cubic feet and obviously one bulk nitrogen. I'm going to add those two items to my cart. You'll see the two up here. We'll hit done. That's going to add both of those line items to my invoice, 360 100 cubic feet at 225, and then the monthly service fee. So pretty straightforward there. But what the BPO option that we talked about does is it actually allows the supplier to also come out here and do a direct search for the BPO. And if I have to expand this to a larger creation date, so exact number will help that. I can actually go and create an invoice, a standard invoice here, without having to go to that punch in. And so I'm going to select the items that I want to actually invoice. In this particular case, this is a monthly service fee, so I'm just going to do a quantity of one. You'll notice it actually has the breakout there of what's going to be invoiced versus what's not. Then I've got the actual cubic feet, so we'll add that, create that line item as well. I do need an invoice number, so we'll create that real quick. And you'll notice that here at the overview, it's only adding those 2 items. It showed me all 7 items, but you actually have to click create, select the item, hit create, update the quantity so that it doesn't invoice everything. And so it shows them like in a PO format on the network, the all of the options and the lines that they can invoice, etc. And so really useful from a supplier invoicing perspective. Some people find that easier to do because it looks like a more traditional PO. Keep in mind, this is not a purchase order. It's not a release. This is direct invoice against contract just with the BPO section selected. And so that's why I say that the SAP Ariba BPO terminology is very different than a traditional BPO where you're going to do releases or it's this large bucket of money, because our BPO really just means how we're going to transact it over the network. So hope you guys found this useful. Like I said, watch the other invoice against contract videos. I think this will be like number 8 in the series. Great information, great useful tool. And just drop me an email if you have any questions. Thanks.